Picture this. You're working on a complex math problem and you make a mistake. What if you could just hit an undo button to reverse your steps? Well, in the world of functions, there's a tool that does just that. The inverse of a function. Imagine a function as a machine that transforms an input into an output. The inverse of that function takes the output and returns it to its original input, essentially hitting the undo button on the operation. Now let's dive deeper. If we have a function, denoted as f, it maps elements from a set x, the domain, to a set y, the range. The inverse function, f1, does the opposite, mapping elements from the range back to the domain. The rules of this game are simple. If fx equals y, then f1y must equal x. But not all functions have an inverse. To have an inverse, a function must be both injective and surjective. In simpler terms, each element in the domain must map to a unique element in the range, with no two inputs producing the same output. And every element in the range must correspond to at least one element in the domain. Let's take a couple of examples. The function fx equals sine x2 is not invertible because it fails the injectivity test. For instance, f1 equals f minus 1, which violates the one-to-one rule. On the other hand, the function fx equals sine 2x plus 1 is both injective and surjective, so it has an inverse f1 1x equals sine x1 slash 2. So, how do we find an inverse function? There are several ways to do it. You can use algebraic manipulation to rewrite the equation y equals sine fx in terms of x. You can also look at the function's graph and reflect it across the line y equals sine x to visualize the inverse relationship. Or you can use iterative techniques to approximate the inverse function. In conclusion, the inverse of a function is a powerful tool in mathematics that acts as an undo button, reversing the operations of a function. It's a fundamental concept that helps us understand relationships and solve complex problems. So next time you find yourself stuck on a tricky function, remember the inverse, your mathematical undo button.